Recently, Police Commissioner Bill Bratton made a statement to a UK newspaper saying that the NYPD had a hard time recruiting black men to become police officers because many African American men have felonies on their record. I can't disagree with what he's saying because it is true. Many black men do get felonies on their record. And what happens is a lot of people don't understand is a lot of black men get felonies on their record for doing some of the silliest things. Now, I've gone into this on my blog, www.shawnsjames.blogspot.com, in Simping in the Summertime, and I also talked about it in a recent video about simps and pit bulls because I saw one guy, setting himself up to catch a case. One day, just walking on my way to the library, he had his pit bull sitting out in the middle of the street with no leash, just sitting out in front of this foreign-owned store. Now, a lot of black men, what they do is they participate in behaviors that lead to them getting felony convictions on their record. And it's a process. What happens is they'll wind up getting caught up in these quality of life initiatives in these crimes. Like they'll be smoking weed because I've seen several black men literally standing when I was going to go pick up a family member who was coming home from work, standing outside of a bus stop smoking weed, outside of the building, outside of the bus stop actually, smoking weed. Other ones standing outside with open containers of malt liquor or beer. Other ones, driving around in cars with stereos pumping and blasting. And another infraction they have is that they don't curb their dogs. Now, all of these infractions, and also walking the pit bull terriers off the leash, trying to look like a bad boy in the summertime. Now, all of these infractions, what happen, and I'll also include hopping the train. I just got to get all the infractions down. This is what happens to black men because these small infractions, all these small infractions, what happens is police officer stops them, gives them a ticket. What happens is they don't show up to court. And because they don't show up to court, you automatically, that ticket event turns into a warrant. And usually when these guys get stopped for the second time, they see their name in the system, it's flagged as having a warrant. And what happens is that warrant it turns a misdemeanor into a felony. And because these black men do not understand that, you need to show up to court, even if you don't have the money for the fine. You just need to show up to court. The ticket turns into a warrant, and that warrant becomes a felony because it becomes failure to appear, and that becomes a felony on your record. And then you get other felonies on top of that, like possession and other things. And it escalates, and this is what prevents me. What happens is when you get these felonies on your record, you wind up getting denied opportunities for many things. Not just civil service jobs like police officers, but other jobs such as the military. You'll get denied for that. You'll get denied even college financial aid. You can't get a Pell Grant if you get a felony on your record. But a lot of people want to turn this into a race issue. But this civil service law, it's been there for I think about 75, 80 years. It says if you have a felony on your record, you pretty much cannot be hired for a civil service position if you have felonies on your record. And a lot of problems with black men is they let small infractions escalate into big infractions. That misdemeanor that was maybe $1,000 fine or $100 fine or $75 fine turns into a warrant for failure to appear or a warrant for some other. It escalates because failure to appear, because this is what happens. These warrants, that misdemeanor turns into a felony because when you fail to appear, that becomes a warrant for your arrest. And if you have 3 or 4 of them, that becomes a felony. And this is how a lot of black men get felony convictions on their record. And another thing that gets a lot of black men in trouble is that a lot of our brothers live with women. And what the women will do is when they can't get their way with the man, they will call the police on the man. And what will happen to that man is he'll wind up, getting a assault charge on him, a battery charge on him. And again, because he does not appear in court, this turns into a warrant, and this also turns into a felony. It all turns further into a felony, and this is what leads to black men getting felonies on their record. Now, everything Mr. Bratton said was pretty much right on point, but you're going to have people who are going to come out and say that he's a racist for making this point about black men in the civil service system. As a guy who once worked in the civil service system, I know how it works. And I know the process of how it works. Now, yes, there is discrimination and racism in there. And there's also, sexism against black men there. Because I know for a fact, because when I was applying to become a CUNY office assistant with the City University of New York, and I passed the civil service test. I ran into this type of discrimination against black men myself. Um, in most cases, even if you pass the test and meet all the qualifications, because I had the college degree, I had the 60 college credits, I met all the qualifications for the position, but I would go to hiring pools and be passed over because most of the cases, many of these universities would hire mostly black women, Hispanic women, and these would be the two groups of women they would hire for these positions. They would not want to hire a black man. They would even hire Hispanic men and Asian men, but they wouldn't want to hire a black man for the position. And I would be constantly be passed over. And it got to the point, I had started applying. I got one job, and I had it for about 7 months, and then I tried to get back into the civil service system. I took another civil service exam, and I took this one back in 2009. And I went through the system from 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, and then eventually in 2012 I just gave up because all I kept seeing were women getting hired. They would just hire a woman every time. But when I even presented it to the City University of New York's HR people, they blew it off and said the claim was unsubstantiated. But every time a black man like myself would try to apply for these positions, and try to go to the interview for these positions, we wouldn't even be considered. And a lot of the times, the HR people would be black women, white women, Hispanic women, and they would make every effort to go pick, and again, another woman, but this would not be considered discrimination. But in the case of police officers, black men have a hard time because, again, a lot of the stuff that we do, does keeps us from getting that job. And that's a big problem. A lot of times we don't show up for court, we don't show up on time, to court, and we don't understand how the legal process works. We think that, oh, if I blow off court, that it's not going to affect you later on. It's not until you get stopped for the second time and they run your name through crime stat that they find, oh, this guy has a warrant for his arrest, or he has 3 or 4 warrants for his arrest, that he starts to then he realizes the impact of it, because you can't let a misdemeanor turn into a felony, and this is something that black men just don't understand. Whenever you get a summons, you have to show up on that date, because I know when I get jury duty notices, if I can't postpone it, I make every effort to show up on that date. If you get another type of summons, you just have to go to those court dates, because this is how you keep from getting these warrants for your arrest on your record. Because once they get you in the system, this is what happens. You wind up with that warrant in the system, and this warrant turns a misdemeanor into a felony. And if you don't show up several times, then it really turns into a felony, because then it looks really bad. And a lot of black men, this is what messes them up. So you can't say that Commissioner Bratton was lying. He was just presenting the truth. Now he's saying that he wants to get the statement retracted, but why should he get it retracted? It's pretty much a fact regarding many black men. Not all black men, but many. And another point, that I want to make about, civil service is that a lot of black men really don't want to be police officers, sadly, because a lot of them can't meet the minimum qualifications. Again, African American men have a high dropout rate, and those who do finish school don't aspire to become police officers. A lot of people who, like myself, graduate high school and graduate college, we want to get jobs that pay a little bit more than the standard. I mean, starting salary for police officer is $32,000 a year, and a guy who gets a BA or AOS, in criminal justice, he wants to start making, maybe $40,000-$50,000 a year, and he sees other opportunities, or if he's making that type of money, he wants to start his own business. So for him, becoming a police officer, it doesn't seem like something he would like to do. Now, the sad part is, but it is a good career for you if you like law enforcement, but the risks, the overtime, a lot of black men don't want to get into anything like that, especially those who can finish school. They look for, more challenging, what they believe is more challenging employment opportunities. They look for, entrepreneurship. They look for other, business ventures. They don't really look to become police officers. It's not a career many black men these days pursue, especially the whole thing. They don't pursue it because they don't see it, as a full-time career. They see other careers, you know, because that's the way it was when I was in college. I was looking for, you know, to work in an office. That was the track that I wanted to get on. Was I wanted to work in an office, and a lot of guys, that's what they believe is like the ideal job, so they pursue that career path rather than, you know, law enforcement. And this is not promoted, you know, in many African American homes, that law enforcement is a viable career path, because a lot of people, they've been listening to NWA, the coons with attitude, tell them to F the police, and they've seen all this other stuff. They don't understand, you know, how the police relate to their community, and they don't see that if they become the officers and they can protect their own community and keep it safe, they don't see that, you know, how it relates to building a community. Because a lot of people, again, they don't feel any connection to the community, because again, they live in things like public housing. A lot of people, even if they own their own homes, they still feel no real connection to the community, especially with African Americans. And they don't. And a lot of times, we don't teach black boys, you know, a connection to the community and how to keep it safe and how to protect it. Again, all this really relates to manhood, and you know, these are lessons that fathers teach sons. That, you know, you have to protect your community, you have to protect the people in your community, and you have to preserve the safety of your community if you want your community to grow and be a nice, great place to live. This is something that is never really taught to African American men. What many African American men are taught, you know, is to get that cash, get those cars, and try to impress those light skinned, big butt women. And this is why, you know, we don't have black men trying to work towards becoming police officers or entrepreneurs in some cases, because they're taught this. This is what they're taught. They're not taught, you know, um, how they have a duty and an obligation to look out for their community and how to protect the people in their community. They're never taught this because their mother never teaches them this. Again, all they learn is get the cash and go, get paid. This is the message that is promoted in your hip hop, um, your rap music, your everything. This is the message that is constantly promoted to African American children, African American boys especially. And, you know, you can't say that the man said anything bad or anything wrong. He pretty much told the truth, you know, and this is what's happening to our black boys after 2 generations of raising them in dysfunction. You can't say that he lied. Or even if he did, it's out there. It's a statement he made, you know. And we have to do something. If we want to have more African American male officers, we have to raise boys to become men. We have to raise men to become leaders in their own community. And we're not doing that. What we're raising boys to become are thugs and dysfunctional males who learn how to live up under women. And they can't even take care of a dog, as I've seen, because if you leave a dog out in the street, and like I saw that day, police officers walk up on you, not understanding that this is how you wind up with a felony. This is how it winds up turning into a case, because you get this ticket, the ticket's $1,000, you get scared, decide not to show up for court, and that ticket turns into a warrant. The warrant, when they catch you again, you know, you get arrested for a felony for failure to appear, and or assault. If you decide to assault these police officers or you try to run, it turns into a felony. This is how you get felony on your record. Or you get into a beef with this female, and that's how it turns into a felony on your record, because they call 911, woman calls 911 on you, and that's how you wind up getting a felony conviction on your record. And all of that, and all these felonies do for black men is impede them from moving their lives forward. Because again, you can't go into the military if you have a felony on your record. In many cases, like the Army and the Navy and several branches of the military, you can't go into them because you have a felony on your record. You can't go to college. You can't get financial aid if you get a felony on your record. And you can't get civil service jobs if you get a felony on your record. Now, I know what the liberals are going to get ready to do. He wants to roll it back so that guys can come in to law enforcement and civil service with felonies on their record, because as a special thing. But I don't think that's going to help anything. What black men have to learn how to do is, you know, keep themselves out of trouble and really watch out for themselves. Because the whole thing is that we have the problem with black boys is that they're never taught, you know, how to put themselves first and how to look out for their own safety and how to meet their own needs. Because in most cases with black men, the women are so busy taking care of these boys that they never learn You have to look out for your own safety. You have to look out for your own, look over your own shoulder, and you have to put your needs first. If this chick wants to argue with you, you have to shut it down because your freedom is more valuable than winning some argument with a female. If you're on the street, you know, take that can of beer and take it upstairs, and walk that dog on a leash, and then even clean up after it because again, it's these small infractions that people use to try to take you out of the game. And what you have to do is, again, putting yourself first means looking out for your own health and safety, and looking out for meeting your own needs so that you can so you can move your life ahead, and look out for yourself so you don't wind up getting messed up in the system. This is something that many black men, haven't learned because no father has been in the home to teach him. You know, watch out for yourself, be careful out here, and that if you don't look out for you, no one else will. None of these guys out here are going to look out for you. None of these people out here are going to try to meet your needs. You are the only one who can look out for yourself and meet your own needs, because the only person who's going to be your fighting and advocating for your best interests is you. And this is something that, your black boy has never been taught. He's always been taught, to get his needs met by women and to get everything taken care of by women. And this is what's messing them up. I mean, black men could become police officers, but that's a road that you have to set a plan for. I mean, you have to say to yourself, look, I don't want to get no records. I don't want to get no felony on my record. So I need to really watch my behavior. I need to watch what I'm doing. I need to watch myself out here. I need not to get into it with this female. I need not to be on the street with these knuckleheads, because all it takes is one little thing and it turns into a misdemeanor, that turns into a warrant, or it turns into a felony, or I get into it with one of these fools out here, and that's going to turn into a felony that's going to mess my life up for the rest of my life. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.